We are now recording the May 8th, 2020 Small Business Accounting Advisors. Hello, everyone.
Happy Friday!
Hello!
Happy Friday! Did anybody listen to Brandon Cinco de Mayo? No, it was fun. It was fun. Some guy named Rob, it took me a minute or two, but he grew on me a lot. So it was kind of fun to have it on in the background and listen while I was working.
Right.
So today we're going to talk about our practice and how is our practice doing. But first we're going to go to Ernest, who we're going to talk a little bit about conferences that are originally in real life that got converted to virtual because in real life doesn't seem to be happening anywhere at the moment. We're still in lockdown.
Yeah, so there was a couple of them. One that I had on my calendar before I actually chatted with Sarah was Microsoft had their business application summit, and a couple of things that they do there. One, just for general accounting, it's their Dynamics 365 product. It's a financial application, right, for mid-market. But more importantly for me, what I focus on a lot, of course, is the Power Platform. So Power BI and all of the other things that go with that, Power Query, and it was great. And, you know, I have to tell you, one of the things that I thought was really awesome about, talk about an unintended consequence that turns out to be a really good thing, is because of COVID, because of our inability to do a lot of travel, I know of, you know, 3 conferences now, or 3 things that used to be kind of pay for play. You had to travel and invest a lot of time around that. And now, instead of going to, I think this was in New Orleans. I can't remember exactly where this one was supposed to be, but it was in person. It was in person. Maybe that was Salon, but anyhow, it was a long flight away, a lot of days in hotels, and instead, I sat here in the comfort of my house and went session after session after session, and it was awesome. And it was free, right? I mean, so, you know, I mean, I could of course talk all day about some of the great things that came out of it, but now look, they've actually put all of their content online.
So if you missed any of it, you can go back and rewatch it? Exactly.
So it's so awesome. And so the other one, so it's out there, it's mymbs.microsoft.com, lots of really good content. Lots of good, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I want to keep on target. So Sarah actually told me about the Salon one. I wasn't nearly as impressed with that as I was with the Microsoft conference, but I don't know, Sarah, since you told me about it, maybe you want to talk about it.
Cinco de Mayo, that's what you did on Cinco de Mayo. I listened to some guy named Rob. You were very focused and business oriented.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Sarah and I were sitting there listening to when Jenny Whitehouse was speaking at one point, which is one of the things that you know, I was thrilled about. So she gave, if you've ever heard her give her whole speech about the business process, the LaCou, what is it? Accounting is storytelling. What's that chart? I can't remember, the LaCou Rouge Winery. So she gave that whole thing. And what did you think of that, Sarah?
Well, I'll tell you what I missed about it was the energy. So if you've seen Jeannie speak, she has a way of just energizing a room, and she's funny, and you know, and so the content was fantastic, the topic was fantastic, of course they were great. I did miss that, you know, when you're live, that, you know, but I tell you what, especially with them giving us the handouts, to have that in the in your resources,
Yeah, well, like I did for the Microsoft, right? I mean, I got an email today. Bonus, by the way, here's all this content that we just hit record because it was easy, and here's all the handouts. And so, I mean, I just want to celebrate that unintended happy consequence of we couldn't go in person, and now these platforms are making it so that you can get all of this incredible rich information with really almost no cost or no cost in both the ones we're talking about.
And one benefit, when you do, because all sessions are either, you know, they're sort of run of the mill or fantastic. I mean, you know how it's just not intensely 8 hours of just awesome.
Yeah.
In any conference, you'll have one that's like, oh, I learned a lot, but okay. But what you miss when you go to the conference and it's live is they usually don't record them so that you can go see them later. So at least with this, so it was intense. It was all day long till what, 7 o'clock at night?
It was 9 hours.
Yeah, 9 hours. Okay. So, yeah, and invariably, you know, I'd take a phone call or you know, run to the restroom and miss something or whatever. So, I've made notes of ones that I want to go back and relook at. So, you know, there's pros and cons. Conferences do have the camaraderie, you know,
Yeah.
but if you're going for content and you're going for education, this is the way to go, because
Oh, yeah.
everything that Ernest spoke of and just the sheer cost savings and not having to disrupt my office because I'm out of town, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing, right? I
Stressful,
mean,
you know?
2 days, anywhere I go almost, to guarantee that I'm going to have 2 days of travel. Right? That's 2 days away from being able to do stuff. So, you know, that to me is just a big win just by itself, right? So, you know, I get 2 days, and oh, by the way, I can go back and invest at least part of those 2 days in rewatching some of the sessions that I didn't get. I mean, I think it's awesome. So I will give you one tidbit on the Microsoft thing that, and honestly, most of you people are just going to be bored, but I have to say it because I've been using SQL for 20 years. And so they announced at the conference that like the whole platform that Microsoft has their stuff on now, which is in the cloud and all that other stuff, they've now enabled the common data service so that you can write SQL. I'm like, yes. All my years of experience writing SQL, I can now apply it directly to the entire Microsoft business common data database. So I was really, really, really excited. I read that and I'm like, what? And the other thing that they announced, which you should be fascinated by once it's really well understood, is they have enabled in the new Power BI the ability for the engine to go read your financial statement and write a narrative for you.
Nice.
So literally, you just point the AI control at the financial information, and it will write a narrative like, you know, your highest item on your balance sheet is blah blah blah, and the biggest changes were XYZ category of 53, and that kind of a thing. So I think those two things are like the biggest huge takeaway for me from that conference, and I can't wait to actually to see how the summary actually works. If it's you know, it's obviously it's always really sexy when they do the demo because it's very carefully crafted data and that kind of a thing. But you know, if that works out really well, that could be a huge win, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other conference that you were going to talk about was the SAGE. I think that's coming up this week. Again, that's going to be virtual now as opposed to...
I did a short search for that one. I mean, I heard about that, but I can't actually find that one online. So I'm not a SAGE partner, so not sure.
Okay.
But I
Check
think
that
there
out.
was a couple of other things on, just to continue that thread just for one more minute. On Meetup, there were a lot of sessions that I used to go to when I was in California that really, really good, deep technical sessions, all in person. This whole thing hit, they immediately went to the Zoom platform and then made them available then to the world. So again, I mean, I think, the big message I would put out there is anybody who, had been thinking about going to this conference or that conference, go look. You might actually be able to get into some of this education for free, or at least at a very low cost, and not have to do the whole travel. So I think that's just a really positive outcome to all of this, especially now. Not to say the tax season is over, but because it's almost just restarting again. But
We'll get into that a little bit.
it's the endless tax
Actually,
season.
it looks like May 5th was the beginning of the SAGE, so it's probably over now too. So that's the date I've got for the 2020.
Yeah, and APA put their payroll congress online. I missed that, but
Did they record it?
I have no idea. I've been drowning in people all of a sudden having their pants on fire to become compliant with payroll when they never cared about it before.
Right? Nothing like a little
So
free
let's
money
go
to
into
motivate
our
people.
next subject, which is how's your practice doing? How's your practice doing, Shannon?
I am in final rounds of interview to hire one new full-time payroll person on next week. And on Monday, my husband put notice in on his job, and he is joining my company at the end of the month.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
So we're really terrified here because all the pressure's on me.
And
But
so,
I've been meeting with a few more people as subcontractors to join my team to take over different bits and pieces. So I've got a marketing person that's going to be training my assistant on the Facebook page and the Facebook groups, and then just kind of expanding things out from there. So, I mean, I know that I am extremely fortunate. I only had 2 clients that were closed.
so you've gained, you're on the plus side and you are off and running.
Right, but on the minus side, I had this restaurant group that was going to onboard their payroll with me. And so that kind of evaporated, and that was significant 5-figure a month income that is gone now.
So are you plus or minus? Compared to last year, how are you doing?
Well, I'm plus.
You're plus.
I'm about net even if you include the clients that I was starting to onboard that I had to stop with the rest of the clients. And I apologize for my very noisy kittens.
Like, what's squeaking?
I know exactly what it was. So Miss Sarah, plus or minus from last year?
The same.
The same, exactly. Lost some and
I've
gained
got
some?
some that are iffy, but it's too soon to tell.
But still busy as all heck.
Oh, busy? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Every time I think it's calming down a little bit, something else, revs it up. So now it's all about that forgiveness. So
Right. Well,
and like Shannon said, people paying more attention to their payroll that had never had before.
exactly.
Because I really don't do HR. So when somebody says so-and-so worked so many hours, I may not, depending on the level of service that I give, I may not see timesheets. I may not know, I try to get across compliance things like you know, if they're truly hourly, you know, things like that. But, you know, the vacation and the paid time off, all that's done.
They take care of
with
that.
the client. They take care of it. It's not necessarily, you know, put in. There's also, I have a lot of clients who, they have hourly employees for overtime, you know, the non-exempt, but they guarantee them 40.
Right.
So they just
okay.
pay them the same thing every week.
Right.
And I go, get it in right, you know, don't ever let anybody leave and then come back on you saying, hey, I never got overtime. So we've worked through that. I've gone through a couple audits where the auditor witnessed them locking the door at 5 o'clock. I'm like, this company does not stay open past 5, you know, they can't do overtime. But now we don't have hours in the system. We don't have
ways to track.
numbers,
Right.
you know, because they were just using salary codes. So, you know, there's things like that. There's going back now. I have the benefit of using desktop payroll. I can go back and edit paychecks as long as I don't change the taxes in the net. I can change pay codes and workers' comp codes and bust them out and things like.
Put your fingers in your ears, Matthew.
Recorded for quality purposes.
But you know what I'm talking about? If somebody got paid their normal salary through COVID,
Right.
I want to see that it was idle time or PTO, or I want to see that they were not physically working. And if they did come in to check the mail and all that, I want it on a separate line. And I want, you know, so that kind of stuff, nobody ever, you know, my clients never cared about that. They just want gross payroll taxes net.
Exactly.
Now I'm like, hold on. I need to know who's here, who's not here. And, you know, so we've been doing a lot of cleanup that way. So it's just stuff that we just didn't have on the, we don't know how to do this time of year.
Right. And Mary, you're deep in the PPP area trying to figure out what you need to do, what's compliance, what?
And I'm not an accountant, so I'm kind of stuck. You know why? Because I look at the bank feed and the stuff is there and I want to do something with it and I don't know what to do with it. You know, they paid the rent and I'm looking at, as I was saying before, Gina, they paid the rent on May 3rd, but the money came through on May 5th and work or not, you know.
All those little questions have to be ironed out. A lot of people are looking at the timing and saying, wait, what? This isn't working out. And I don't know who it was. It must have been Hector that said, can't they put some accountants in the government that can do the math?
Yeah.
But then what will the attorneys do?
Right, exactly.
Here's something that I saw today. One of my clients got the loan and went into his checking account, and I went onto his site, onto the banking site, and I saw that there was another account set up. It's called a loan account, has a number, and it has that amount in it. However,
The bank made him get a new bank account.
but they didn't transfer the funds. When I looked onto his checking account, the money is there, and that's where it is. And this other account, you can't do anything with it. Said,
Oh, is it like a line of credit? Like, you know, when you go online, you can see how much you owe for
there's
loan?
nothing to click on. It just is a statement, and
Just
it
a
says
statement,
if you
yeah.
want information, you have to call. You can't do anything with this online.
That's
So I
interesting.
called, and I got bounced around a few times. I ran out of time to keep calling more people, but I thought that I don't know what the hell to do with that.
It's a loan. They're
It's a
showing it
loan?
as a loan. Yeah.
It's a loan, but why don't they transfer the money into this other account from the checking
You-
account?
Oh, I thought you said it was already in the operating account.
It's in the operating checking account, but there now suddenly is this other bank account or loan
I don't think it's
account.
a bank account. I think it's a loan statement, the balance of your loan, like a
But shouldn't
mortgage.
the bank put the money into that account?
It's not a bank account. I don't think it's a bank.
So what the heck is?
Or else a sub-account of the,
I think it's, you know how you go into Bank of America and you can see your mortgage and your bank
Bank
account?
of America, actually.
I think it's a loan. probably is a presentation of the loan amount until they figure out the forgiveness and then convert it to either it's all forgiven or paid back or
All right,
converted.
so I should just ignore that.
I
I can't
would.
connect it. I can't do anything with it.
No,
That's cool they're doing that though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I have another Bank of America client, and they didn't do that with him. So I have no idea.
Is anything consistent?
Like you said, nobody seems to know what's going on.
Nah.
So yeah, I'm confused today.
Well, and I have two clients that got loans or their PPP applications run through the same bank.
Mhm.
Both of them wanted different information. Same loan officer, same everybody at the bank, and they wanted two completely separate sets of information.
Of course.
I wonder if that's a risk thing. Like,
Maybe it could be because they wanted a lot less information from me than they did from my clients.
is it a timing thing? Like it seemed like the ones at the very beginning of this whole process, they wanted so much information. By the time we got to the second one, they were like, no, we're only required to get boom, boom, boom.
And did you submit the same stuff for both companies, right? Because if you didn't submit the exact same stuff on both companies, that could have also caused more requests afterwards.
I
Well,
did
they
because
shouldn't be linked. They shouldn't be linked in any way.
I took the list from what they wanted from me and when I sent it in for my client, I sent the exact same stuff in for him. And they're like, well, no. And now they want his full, complete 2019 tax return.
Oh,
So
you
I'm
must be
thinking
a
it
sole
is
proprietor.
List of things that some of these people
It's an
are,
entity thing, probably. A sole proprietor versus a S corp, maybe.
Yeah, well, see, and actually our situations are pretty similar because we're both single member LLCs last year, converted to an S corp this year.
Oh.
The big difference though is I've had payroll for the last 8 years and this is his first payroll.
Yeah, huge difference. Yeah.
so it's kind of different because the banks are asking you for the information, but it's really the SBA that's giving you the loan. So that's I've been telling people there's like 3 doorways here. There's the bank, there's the SBA, and then, there's the government that gives the money. So
I think a better analogy is the Three Stooges.
Right.
it is.
And then who's really in charge of the rules for the forgiveness piece? Are the banks the intermediary again, where the SBA is, we want these things, and the bank is saying, oh yes, they're forgiven, and then, they get blessed, but somebody else can have the exact same situation and the same banker and have a different, and it's just, nobody knows what's going on, which is really super concerning because there's no set of rules for everybody
Exactly.
to follow.
I don't know if anybody's been forgiven yet. Do you?
No,
I have.
I don't think that we will.
Matthew,
I
has
forgiveness
I
there.
have.
I don't think anybody's been forgiven yet.
Did anyone look at the link I put in the chat?
Yeah,
That was last week's news.
Oh, right. Shows how much I know. Does that mean you have to set up a separate class for those expenses that you tracked in using the PPP funds?
I think it'll depend on what's forgiven or not. Because who wants to, it's easy to say this revenue is not taxable. It's more difficult to say pieces of expenses are not deductible. So how that's going to shake out, we don't know. But the AICPA has gone to the SBA and requested that that was not the intent of the CARES Act, and for them to say it's one thing, we make business decisions based on that, and then pull the rug out from under us later. That's not right, because I can see the argument. Free money, so why are you getting a deduction for it? But that wasn't my issue. My issue is it pays for either or both idle workers and working workers. Okay, so the idea was, here's your payroll protection program funds to bring everybody off unemployment. So now you've disrupted your employees if they were getting unemployment. They're not getting their extra 600. They're still at home, and oh my gosh, now I have to pay taxes on it, and I have to match the FICA, and jury's still out on the workers' comp. So,
Best joke ever on us. They just took all of this money that would have been on unemployment on the federal government and said,
put it back on us.
hey, owners, guess what?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I
never
would have.
promise you it might be forgiven. Maybe.
I might have gone. I'm just going to. The city told me to close. I closed. Everyone's on unemployment. I write it out. Open when I can. This whole PPP hell, and paying us to do it to keep us.
In the meantime, no, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, it's all subjective. I mean, we could talk about it all day long, and until they come out down with final guidance.
Well, how is it final if they keep coming out with more of them? Interim.
Well, that's the
And they
thing.
come out
I
with
think
little bitty FAQs, and they expect you to go online and see if there's any new ones today.
every single day,
Every day.
We do.
every single day.
Multiple times a day.
My favorite one was when they actually gave the partial example of how a full-time equivalent employee would be figured out, like previously, or they got 90% of the way of actually defining in a manner which we could have used what an FTE would have been, and they just left it hanging there. I mean, all they had to do is say that in that same scenario, an FTE today would currently be equal to boom, but they didn't do it.
Right. Well,
It is what
this
it
money,
is.
what I'm telling people is, you know what, it'll be what it'll be. Worst case scenario, it's a 1% loan. Now,
Right.
most people are saying they would not have taken a loan to do this had they known in the beginning. But it could be enough to get them. It could be the bridge that gets them through this crisis.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. I understand why they're doing what they're doing. The big businesses are just gobbling up the money and leaving crumbs for the small businesses, smaller businesses. So they're trying to fight that, but they just, put things out too quickly without realizing all of the implications that this will have all the way down the line.
Here's the
And I-
worry for me is lawsuits. Because even though you're not culpable, even though you didn't do anything wrong, even that people can sue for anything. So we're going to see people who are harmed in their mind, whether it's COVID or anything else, they're going to start blaming everybody around them.
Exactly.
And I tried to be very clear in correspondence and everything is I will help you with the PPP because I'm going to get documents and all that. But, and they'll go, well, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, I can't tell you what to do, but
that's the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing right
my
there.
clients, but they could still come back, turn around and go, I wouldn't have this loan. Or you said I would get forgiven. See, here's the thing. You said I'd get forgiven. Well, back in the beginning of this, the way we looked at it, you're going to get forgiven. But if they loan you 2.5 months worth of payroll, but then you have to spend it in 1.8 weeks or months, 1.8 months. And then you don't have anything like rent and utilities and all that to soak up the rest of it. You're screwed. So,
but we're all in the same,
It was going to be forgiven at that time. I was telling the truth.
Go, Matthew.
So a couple things that I have come up with as concepts to this. Any of your employers, if anybody is currently, if they're sitting around that 20 to 25 hours a week, you bump them up to 30 minimum right away. Okay. We don't know whether the way we're proceeding forward, we don't know if 30 hours per week or 40 hours per week is considered a full-time equivalent employee. But if I go off of 30, it gives me the highest potential number so I can protect myself that way. So if you have people if they're part-time to that amount, honestly, if it's 5 hours or something, pay them even if they're not working. Put an extra 5 hours on every one of those paychecks because you just gave yourself a buffer on your FTE if you need to.
That's a good idea.
Number two, if you were still under, This is a phenomenal opportunity to have the government pay for a project that you need to get done. For example, if you need to get a website done and you hire somebody as a W-2 employee full-time to work on your website, guess what you just did? You used PPP to be able to pay an employee to get a website done.
Exactly.
If you
A little
right?
dangerous for a contractor to do that if on their own side of the table.
Yeah, but they're not a contractor. He's talking about putting them
As
on
a
W-2.
W-2.
Oh, you're talking about
Payroll.
you hiring. Oh, okay, so if somebody who normally owns their own website design company comes in and yeah.
Yeah, I literally like if I didn't have a business partner, I would be like, sure, you can all put me on W-2s, not a problem, and do all the work, right? Like, put me on W-2. If I get W-2s from everybody, if I'm not taking unemployment, it is one of the best opportunities for some of these project people to actually be pulling in hours, have tons of work. I mean, theoretically, you can only do 2, right? Because if you're full-time, but you get the point. I mean, if you're doing that, you could do it. It helps a business get their FTE count legally, right? And I would even with workers' comp, if you're doing the whole like marketing or website one, I would comp them as doing a website as the extra showing, no, I hired this person to do a website. So that's my crazy ideas though.
Awesome. So we're going to round this out. Better or worse? Dennis, better or worse? You are muted.
About the same.
About the same.
My biggest frustration is the IRS is basically shut down. And so I can't be doing a lot of stuff. I had one question though. Are there any social distancing requirements in the for getting a PPP loan? I mean, what happens if people aren't 6 feet apart in your office? Can you get sued if you aren't compliant with some of the social distancing requirements?
That would be a local municipality problem.
That would be local to local. Yeah,
Oh, really? Okay.
absolutely.
And a potential workers' comp claim.
Well, yeah. I mean, our state came down and they're very specific. You have to have a sign on the door. You're supposed to put signs in front of, like, I have one company that there's desks out in the middle of a big space and you're supposed to put a line where the customer has to stop. You know, they're not doing
Well, my state now is in 2. So I have red phase and I have orange phase in my state. So I have 2 sets of rules depending on what county you're in my state.
Do I have to
And then
follow?
how
if I
much
can't
teeth
tell the
does it
difference?
have? How can they enforce it? It's not law. It's
No, it's not.
executive
It is
order.
what it is.
You know, so-
Linda Russell. Oh, are you on the phone?
I think while she's on the phone, we should all do one of those move.org things, whatever it is. Where, you know, so everybody does like sign petitions, and we should get every accountant and bookkeeper out there to do a movement to get all of us accountants and bookkeepers and tax professionals a discount on our taxes, grant or whatever.
Hazard pay. We need a hazard bonus. We need a hazard credit. We need a
We
hazard.
sue them because of what they caused all of us. That's all.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Oh boy,
Shannon,
we quit.
better
We're
or worse?
about
We already went through you. You're better. Well, the same. Sarah, better or worse?
financially the same, sleep-wise.
Worse. Mary?
Well, you get to sleep.
About the same. I just got somebody new, so put me into the same.
Matthew?
Better.
Better. Dwayne?
It's basically about the same, except that clients are dragging their feet because they know they have a
Yeah.
longer time to file.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating a big deluge come
Yeah.
June 30th and maybe,
Yeah, but the IRS is closed, so there's nothing you can do until then anyway.
yeah, actually they hired
Pretty much, yeah.
they hired some people to come in and open up the unopened mail.
Yeah.
Yay.
Now the loading docks, they also say that don't send anything to the IRS with a certified mail with the receipt required because it'll just get bounced back to you.
Wow.
there's
Wow,
no one to
that's my
sign.
standard.
You-
Whatever.
In a bunch
You heard about the story that 100 employees at IRS have COVID-19, right?
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. Ridtick reported to the Senate committee that 100 members had COVID-19 where they tested positive and 4 of them died.
Oh, oh.
Yeah.
Well, question. If all these people have COVID and they live, isn't there only like a 3-week window and then they can work again if they feel better?
You know, there's
I'm not going to say that because they don't know whether it's like the flu and it changes.
Right,
Yeah, if it
right. But
mutates,
So
or-
if you've had it and you get better, I believe that there's still a chance that you can get a different version of it. Because they're now talking about West Coast versus an East Coast version.
Oh, we're better by far, by far.
Yes, the air's better out here.
I think we should actually have a website out there called COVID Couples for people who already contracted it. And
you finally date, yeah.
Look, I just want a haircut, please.
Oh yeah, let's not talk about it.
I'm ready to do my own.
So we're going to
Nope.
change 180 completely. Miss Sarah has finally decided on an ACH payment program.
Right, I don't even remember, I guess 3 months ago, went into it, changed their pricing schedule for running ACH. So I'm a desktop gal. I have all my contracts posting automatically, but I still had to manually go in and receive a payment, receive a payment to ACH everybody at the beginning of the month. But it was 50 cents or something. So it was like, there were solutions to automate that, but no biggie. And next thing you know, it's what, a percentage of the invoice? And it went from, under $10 or whatever, I forget what it was, to like, anyway, a lot of money. So I started hunting, and I had my whole spreadsheet of all the different options and everything. And I believe it was Stacy Brin who recommended Today's Payments.
from the West Coast, by the way.
Huh?
You said from the West Coast.
West Coast, yeah. Anyway, she's been using them forever. So, I put it off at first because you've got the learning curve. You got to make a decision. Do you make the right decision? The whole thing. So I got my approved. I got my account and everything. And then I poked around with it, but it wasn't so user-friendly that I knew exactly what I was doing. So I didn't want to touch it until I received a demo or some more hands-on training. So I went ahead and paid QuickBooks for, another 2 months. But anyway, I finally get it. And the beauty of this system, now that it's set up, because, it's a lot of information to feed in it, I say reoccur on the 1st, and I'm done. And it sent a email saying you've been scheduled for the 1st for 24 times or something like that. And then I have one client who I don't really have a contract, because I sort of have a minimum fee that I help them out. And if it gives out of scope, I bill her extra. So she had told me, I had an ACH agreement that said, with your approval, I will ACH. And she said, if it, and this is a client I've had for 20 something years, as long as it doesn't go over this amount, go ahead. Well, when you start to get more serious about setting up a system, you can't be loosey-goosey like that, okay? So, but I was able to set up a simple invoice, and it sends her the invoice, and I'd already put her banking information in it, and she just okays it. So
Nice.
now I'm actually protected because I sent her an invoice and she pulled the trigger for the ACH. So, and it was so simple on her end. It was great. They also, when they get the receipt, they're given a chance to make their own account if they want, and then they can look at copies, and they could change what day it drafts. It gives them So
Nice.
Anyway, done. So just one of
Yay.
the dues has been hanging out there.
And what is the name of the system again?
Called Today Payments.
Today Payments.
$50 a month and 25 cents an ACH.
Nice.
And if it's, I think if it's a credit card, there's some, I didn't sign up for all that, but it's through Avidia Bank, AVIDIA. And they do have a affiliate program. I told them now that I know how to use this, I wasn't going to recommend it. So, you know, so if anybody's interested, let me know. But
Awesome.
it does have a QuickBooks desktop interface if you want to use accounts receivable, which is a little bit more hands-on. I wanted it completely automated, and I will just memorize the deposit slip on the first. I'm just
Nice.
So
Nice.
anyway.
All righty. Well, we're going to end today's show on that note. We will see you same time, same place next week.
All right. Have a nice weekend.
Have a
Bye.
great weekend, everyone.